What's up everybody, it's your boy Fan. Today's video is a little bit different than anything I've ever done before. It's the top 3 coolest characters you've never heard of. I don't even have an order for this list. I'm just throwing names out there, although I am going to keep my favorite of the 3 to last, so maybe there is an order. But the other 2, they're really cool characters, they're just not my favorite coolest character. The first character we're going to talk about is Nigel Higgins, Outlaw, also known as the British Punisher. Nigel Higgins first appeared in Punisher number 64 in 1992. At that time, he was essentially just a friend of Frank Castle, who helped him on missions whenever he came to Europe. Fast forward a few years, and Nigel Higgins becomes Punisher himself. He dons the moniker and starts fighting crime in Europe. And he has the same principles as Frank Castle, which is essentially a tough on crime approach to the extreme. Everybody knows about Punisher, right? Punisher kills criminals for theft and stuff like that. Like, he's that extreme when it comes to crime. Nigel Higgins was the same. At some point though, he decides that what he's doing isn't the right answer. He quits as Punisher and refuses to kill ever again. He was uncomfortable with the fact that the criminals he was murdering, he was being celebrated for. And he felt like those criminals were considered expendable. Sometime later, Nigel is kidnapped and brought to what are the remnants of Doom's battle world. A little bit of background, and the only reason I'm giving the background in this video is because it relates to multiple characters that I'm about to talk about. Actually, all 3 of them have some relation to Doom's battle world, so this is what I'm going to talk about. So these remnants of Doom's battle world are from Secret Wars. Marvel has a multiverse. The universes within that multiverse were crashing together, and when they crashed together, the universes would be destroyed. It came down to a point where it seemed like it was just impossible to prevent, and the entirety of the multiverse was essentially going to be destroyed. Doom and Molecule Man go out and try to find enough power to prevent the incursions, and they ended up finding the Beyonders' powers. When I say the Beyonders' powers, I'm not saying the Beyonder ''S's powers. I'm talking about the race of Beyonders. They had their powers left behind in the negative zone, if I remember correctly. Molecule Man assimilate those powers, and essentially Molecule Man becomes a battery for Doom, who becomes God Doom, the ruler of Battle World. And what he does is he takes the universes who hadn't crashed into each other yet, he takes all of them together and combines them into one universe and one planet within that universe. Fast forward to the end of that story, Doom is defeated, Battle World is destroyed, and the universe is recreated, or the multiverse is recreated. The remains of that battle world still existed. Adam Brasher finds out that these remains actually have an extreme amount of condensed power that has the potential to become anything, essentially stem cells of the universe. So the elders of the universe enter this realm that's completely been forgotten, and they mop up the pieces of this primordial force, which Adam Brasher called Isotope 8 or ISO 8. Put this all together, form a sphere, and have essentially godlike powers. The Grandmaster and the Collector came up with a game, take the pieces that belonged to all of the elders, combine them into one sphere, and then have one all-powerful elder, essentially. So that is the story behind the Contest of Champions. Long story short, Nigel Higgins makes it to the end of the contest and gets his hands on the sphere. Because his beliefs about being a Punisher had changed, he decides to then wish for all of the people that he had killed during his Punisher days be brought back to life. He brought everyone back to life, and then he destroyed the Isosphere. So what makes Nigel Higgins the coolest character? To me, the fact that he had no powers, he was in this Contest of Champions, where the other people that were a part of it are characters like Maestro, who were very powerful. He survives to the end and becomes like a godlike figure for just a moment, and was kind of selfless in what he did with that power, repented for his old sins. Nigel put together a team of heroes, a team that we have not seen since, except for a short appearance in US Avengers, his team appears there. So the team is made up of some really cool characters, another of which is on this list, which is Guillotine, and I'm going to talk about her next. Stick, brought back from the dead, and then Ares. Pretty interesting team made up of some really cool characters that I'd like to see in action some more, and we haven't really heard anything from these characters in 3 or 4 years. But that's the first character, Nigel Higgins, the British Punisher. Second character on this list is Guillotine. So Guillotine is another character who actually made her first appearance in the Contest of Champions storyline. Aside from the 3 appearances with US Avengers, Guillotine has not appeared since. So Guillotine is a very unique character, and let's talk a little bit about her powers and abilities and how they work. So basically, an ancestor of hers hundreds of years ago happens upon this sword, and he finds a sword in like the catacombs of France. Her ancestor gives this sword this blood oath, tying it to the entirety of his descendants, but also giving them what is in essence superpowers. Now her superpowers, as I understand them reading through Contest of Champions and then going out and reading US Avengers, her powers are in essence that the sword kind of give her an innate fighting ability. The sword has a mental connection to her. It's almost like she's being psychically controlled by the sword in fights. So she's a master sword fighter. That is a part of what we know of Guillotine's abilities. There's also the sword itself. So another scene in Contest of Champions is very interesting. Guillotine was fighting Maestro, carrying Captain America's shield. Guillotine attacks him and actually cuts the shield with the sword. Maestro even comments that she has damaged an artifact that is precious to him. You know, Guillotine's sword has essentially the potential, possibly, to cut Captain America's shield. Now, I will note that the shield of Captain America that Maestro was carrying was actually zombie Captain America from the zombie universe. This is important to note because it's not the 616 shield. There may be a difference in the composition of that shield. It may not be adamantium. It may be some other metal. It may be adamantium. But there is at least the possibility Guillotine's sword can cut adamantium, which is why she's on the list. She's really cool in that she's a little bit mysterious. We have no idea how her powers work, aside from the fact that possibly if she's disarmed, she may not have any powers anymore. Her powers seem to be just fighting well, her sword fighting well, and then the sword itself gives her this sort of a bloodlust forced on her by the sword to go and kill. So the sword requires blood. It kind of absorbs blood. She does have this cool sword, and it seems to be a very powerful weapon in itself, capable of possibly cutting Captain America's shield. She's like completely been forgotten about by Marvel, so hopefully we'll see some Guillotine and some Nigel Higgins as the British champions, I believe is what they call their team, come together and fight some people sometime in some future. Hopefully, maybe we should write a letter because I'd like to see more of them. Okay, the last person I'm going to talk about is one of my favorite characters in Marvel. Her name is Anwen Bakian. She's a dope character for a number of reasons, but let me give you a little bit of her backstory. During the time when Doom's Battle World existed, what Doom had done is he'd split the Battle World into different areas that kind of stayed segregated from the other areas. One of those areas was called New Xandar. New Xandar is where the Nova Corps existed and Annihilation Wave. So New Xandar was getting crushed by the Annihilation Wave. That's just like what existence in New Xandar was. And so Anwen's mother had disappeared. Her name was Eve. She had gone to join the Nova Corps sometime prior to this. Another thing about Doom's Battle World is that very few people knew of the existence of the universe they were in before the Battle World. They didn't know anything about the incursions, none of that. So a lot of the people were just living life as though they always lived it on Battle World in that way. So this makes it unclear of whether or not Eve joined the Nova Corps before or after the incursion. So anyway, she shows up. They hadn't seen her in years, but someone else had showed up prior to that, and that was Thanos. And Thanos had the Time Stone. And Anwen had just found the Mind Stone, if I remember correctly. She'd found a stone just recently as well. We will start from that point. So they start looking for the rest of the Infinity Stones. The first option they chose is at the old Nova headquarters. They found out the Nova headquarters have been destroyed. The Guardians of the Galaxy were there. They had come after the destruction of the headquarters, but they had found, I believe it was the Space Stone. They find Groot and get the Power Stone. They find Adam Warlock and get the Soul Stone. Just after getting the Soul Stone, Thanos double crosses Eve. So Eve has been taking the stones this whole time, using them to help the family, etc. One thing, and a very important thing that I forgot about, so I'm gonna back up real quick. When Eve showed up, she had Nova Stars for the entire family. Anwen got one, the dad got one, Anwen's sister got one, and the dog got one. And she was kind of showing them how to use their powers during this whole time period while they're traveling and looking for the stone. So Thanos double crosses Eve and then pulls her soul into the soul rim, killing her. At this point, Anwen ends up fighting Thanos, and this kind of makes her really cool. She has the Reality Stone, and then Thanos has the other 5 stones of the Infinity Gauntlet, and she ends up defeating him using the Reality Stone to create a new Infinity Stone she called the Death Stone. She gives the Death Stone to Thanos. That's like a property of the Death Stone. And then she has the complete Infinity Gauntlet for herself. So I couldn't find anything that showed Anwen's actual age. My guess is between 13 and 15, but she was, essentially a kid. She becomes a member of the Nova Corps. She learns her powers quickly enough to be effective fighting the Annihilation Wave and the bugs from the Annihilation Wave. She watches her mother die, but she fights Thanos in a 5 versus 1 Infinity Stone battle and wins, and completes the Infinity Gauntlet. So yes, that's why she's one of my favorite characters. She's like in my top 5 of favorite characters. Really cool. Another thing, she's an artist. Her creativity is what kind of gave her the idea to use the Reality Stone to create a new Infinity Stone. She created a new Infinity Stone. You know what I mean? Like, that's how awesome she is. She was a really cool character. Unfortunately, we have not seen her since. This is the only story she appears in, which is, I think, like 6 or 7 issues, or maybe 5. I can't remember. But it's not very long, and that's it. We don't see her anymore after that. I would really like for Marvel to kind of go through and dig this character up. So these 3 characters on this list, they're all the same. Like they did something dope, and then Marvel was like, all right, we don't need you anymore. Quite literally. So hopefully we see these characters again. But definitely Anwen, I'd really love to see her. Guillotine as well, and Outlaw. Nigel Higgins, he's really dope. So anyway, thanks. That's my list. I don't want to let this go on too much longer. It's far longer than I wanted it to be, but that's fine. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of my videos, and I'd love to see you guys here again.